All right, hey everyone. Good morning. It's about 9 o'clock here where I'm at in New Mexico. It's been a while since I've done a live stream, and I have an appointment in a couple hours, so it's like the best time for me to finally sit down and, talk about something that's been on my mind. And this is something I've talked about in the past in a quick video, maybe from a year, maybe 2 years ago. And it's about who is called Squanto, the Native American of the Patuxet tribe, back in the 1600s, late 1500s. And the question that I've always had since I've kind of researched a little bit about him is if this person was actually a real person. And, because here we are in 2022, we know nobody that can truly say that this was a real life person back in the day, right? Just because, like Zach always mentions, usually we don't even know, many of our families don't know that many generations past in our own family history, in our own family tree, So it's hard to say. And the main reason I question who Squanto was, well, I have his Wikipedia pulled up here, but so obviously we only get drawing pictures of, or illustrated pictures of who this guy was. And, they let you know he was of the Patuxet tribe, but whenever he was taken hostage to, where did he go? To Europe somewhere. He came back to his homeland, which is now like the Massachusetts area, to find that his tribe was completely wiped out, right? So, and if you ever seen the movie from the early 90s, I think it was like 1994, there's a movie starring Adam Beach playing Squanto, and that's how they show you in the movie too, that he's literally the only Patuxet member alive. So, and just knowing those two things about him, the tribe that he's from and the name that was given to him, I believe by William Bradford, what was he then, the governor right here? Yeah, he was the governor of Plymouth, William Bradford, because they say his name was pronounced like Tisquantum, but so he was given the name Squanto. So whenever you just run the gematria on that, you have Squanto and his tribe, and it's a complete 4 out of the 4 cipher overlap. You have, and the numbers that stand out to me are the 107 and 37s in regards to Squanto, because you'll notice, like, of course, we don't know when he was born because I'm sure the people back then didn't keep track of that. I even know great grandmas today and stuff who, of like the Navajo tribe of where I'm at, they never even knew their own original birthdays. So it's hard to say like how old that they were back then. And what's funny about it to me is if you actually type out, let's see, Squanto's, how did I have it? Squanto's age, maybe? I don't remember. Yeah, they tell you that he died at age 37. I mean, this is just, who creates this is what I want to know too, because it's been the same for the past few years, ever since this has been a topic of mine that I've been looking into. But it shows you that he was born on May 15th, 1585, and died on November 30th, 1622. And so it's just the age of him being 37 that they connect that with him whenever Squanto and his tribe Patuxet equate to 37. So, that's interesting to me. And if you look into his cause of death, I don't know if it should be on just his Wikipedia. Otherwise, you can type it in, Squanto's death cause or whatever. But what I've read, it always points out Indian fever. Like that's always the term that they write. Oh, right here. Squanto fell sick of Indian fever. And I think even if you type it out, which I'll just show you here, maybe death cause. Oh, now it just says fever, but just in the past, having Indian fever, that just goes along with the 107s with Squanto and Patuxent. And he's known to be, even in the movie that you watch, or if you read about him, obviously the main term used was the word savage. But in the movie, I don't know if they ever say noble savage, but when you read about him, they often refer to him as the noble savage, right? So noble savage. Whoops. Sorry, I didn't mean to put noble, but just the word savage equals 107 as well. I mean, it just is interesting to me, right? That all this kind of aligns. And they say that he was a part of the first Thanksgiving along with the Wampanoag tribe. And Wampanoag, if I can spell it right, Wampanoag, another interesting name just because it also carries the 37 like Squanto, and they were at the first Thanksgiving together. But supposedly he died at the age of 37. But that's just my thoughts on talking about him. But I mean, when you look at when it shows you where was it? He died supposedly in 1622 in November. Recall that's the same year that they had the Jamestown Massacre on March 22nd, 1622. And I had that pulled up. I don't know if I closed it, but I can show you that. Jamestown Massacre date. March 322 of 1622. And right away, this, a number that I've always talked about, if you watch any of my older videos, because when I first found this knowledge from Zach, I wasn't only trying to like prove it or show myself through sports and like, the rigging of that. I mean, I clearly know that sports are rigged today, but I also wanted to know just because I'm, Native American, and so I wanted to know the history more, if there's anything that related to a certain number. And I found that 63 just seems to be like, the number when it comes to Native Americans, because Native American equates to 63. And whenever you use the rule for S, which I'm not used to Derek's new calculator, so I don't know if the rule for S is on here, or what he calls it now. So I don't know, right here, single reduction. It's right there. So, okay, you got Native American. Native American's still 63 in reduction because there is no S in Native American. But what I found was whenever you run indigenous equals 63 when you acknowledge that S on the end. And so what was interesting was whenever you write out the word 63, if you notice, 63 and indigenous are pretty much like a complete overlap. Just the reverse and ordinal are flipped, but they still carry the same number values, including the 63. And so that's just a number that I've always paid attention to. And so with this date happening, this massacre happening supposedly on March 22nd of 1622, right off the bat, 63 date numerology. When you take 3 plus 22 plus 16 plus 22, you get 63. So I found that fitting. And whenever you do even more, when you try to look into the massacre, I mean, there's really not a whole lot on it, right? Because this took place in Virginia, Jamestown, Virginia at the time. And John Smith, when you think of Pocahontas, John Smith, it's that John Smith that, was the founder of this colony. And when you go down at the bottom too of this, I found it kind of funny that I think it was on this page, or maybe I was looking at a different page. Okay, if you don't know the story of this first, of what this massacre was, sometimes called Indian Massacre of 1622 or Jamestown Massacre. So it tells you right off that John Smith wasn't present at this colony since 1609. So whenever this took place in 1622, he wasn't there. So he was the main witness who writes about it, wasn't even there. But so what they say is it was the Powhatan people, which Powhatan people, like Chief Powhatan, they say that Pocahontas was his daughter. So she was of that tribe, just so if you guys aren't aware. But so it was the Powhatan people, they were friends at the time, supposedly, with the colony people of Jamestown. So they were, I guess they would normally have like meet and greets and stuff, and they would trade together. And, that's just what they say. So who really knows? But they say that the natives came into their colony, into their homes, acting as if they were there to share food and, whatever that they had, and that they came into their homes unarmed. And then I guess whenever the English weren't paying attention, then that's when they started to attack them, right? So they say that that's how the massacre happened. And supposedly the Indians killed 347 people. And 347, I was just looking more into this number because 347 is the 69th prime number. And, thinking that this massacre took place in 1622, sorry, my computer's a little slow, but yeah, 347 is the 69th prime. And 69 we know is a strong number with the Catholic Church. But before I go there, we'll talk about it now. Let me get rid of the S cipher. But we know that Catholic Church equals 69 in the most pure, just as well as the Society of Jesus. Or not, I'm not going to write the Society of Jesus. It's the Jesuit order. Also carries the 69 in the same cipher as Catholic Church. But the reason I want to go and talk about that, because the Jesuits, you got to realize, that they've existed since, 1540. It was whenever, they established the Society of Jesus. But what's interesting too is I wanted to just double check who was the Pope in 1622. And it was Pope Gregory the 15th. And just right off the bat here, it shows you that he canonized Francis Xavier and Ignatius of Loyola. So, he definitely had a big connection to the Jesuits at that time. So I was doing a little bit more digging on this a while ago. And it's even interesting that this Pope in the time of this massacre, and just look at that too, this took place, which we know that 312 number with, I have a video on 312 with Aaron Rodgers and what it all means. But just to know that both of these guys were canonized on March 12th of 1622, the same year and month as the massacre at Jamestown. Literally 10 days before this supposed massacre took place, you got these two, the head honchos of it all, in a sense, right? Xavier and Ignatius of Loyola being canonized by this Pope in that time. And then here, this Pope ends up also dying at the age of 69, which also stands out, on the date 7/8, we know Jesuit equals 78. But the 69 stood out because that's how many deaths, well, they say 347 deaths. 347 is the 69th prime. that's how many supposedly died in this, Jamestown massacre of March 22nd. Which the 322 thing, I feel like, I know what we know what it means biblically with the scriptures and such, amounting to 322, but I just think there's still more to it in the sense related to like Native Americans in general. Especially with that big 322 ritual that Zach caught with between, who was it, Bucks and Chiefs were playing, and Chiefs got, I'd have to go back and look at that game, but you had the death of Sachin Littlefeather, and it was a huge 322. That's something I need to revisit more, but I just haven't had so much computer time the past couple of months, it feels like, other than trying to stay up on my sports Patreon. But yeah, it all just makes me go back to the Jesuits, obviously, when you look at this. And then to say like this even happened, but then to read this right here, it states that the colonists used the 1622 massacre as a justification for seizing the Powhatan land for the next 10 years. We know, from all these different false flags and stuff, that there's an end reason of why they're even done in the first place. And this just seems like to be an example here, because everywhere that I've read about this, they give you that number, 347 deaths, like exact number. They don't round it off or anything. But this was just a topic that's been on my head for a little while, but I just haven't been able to present anything or talk about it. But just to think, like, just to question it all, I guess. The Squanto thing, that just makes me feel like, I don't know if this person was even real. It could just be known as a person just to get more Native Americans to follow along with the English, at that time, using him as an example. What else? I just want to make sure most of that got out. It was interesting too. I did run Pope Gregory's birth date, January 9th, to, let's see, I'll just show you again. I pull it up. So he was born January 9th, Pope Gregory the 15th. And that's another interesting thing too, is because they say that this massacre took place in 1622, whenever Jamestown, which, let me pull it up so you can see it. Jamestown, well, it was established or founded in 1607, which it should state that somewhere. All right, here. Upon the settlement's founding in 1607, so 1622, 1607, 15 years difference. Let me just show you that. And then here we're talking about Pope Gregory the 15th at the time. Kind of interesting just to see how he fits in it. But if you take his birthday of that year too, and you just throw a span on it, it's his 73rd day of his age, and 73 in the word sacrifice. It seems a little fitting there. But yeah, let me just read some comments. I'm sure they paid tribute to the battle in Crazy Horse this weekend. Oh yeah, I didn't even think about looking at that. Don't forget about, let me see if I can pull it up. How did I title it? One of my go-tos, just to, would it be this one? I think it was this one. Yeah. Don't forget December 29th, which this had to be in 2019. Yeah, this was 2019 because this was literally like a month or 2 months after I found Zach's page. Let me show. Okay, well, it's right here. So the Wounded Knee Massacre took place December 29th, 1890. And so what I was paying attention to in the NFL, right after I found out about Gematria and all this, you had the Redskins playing the Cowboys. And December 29th, exact date of Wounded Knee. And this was the last regular season games for both teams. Well, definitely for the Redskins. I can't remember if the Cowboys made it to the playoffs or not, but I know for sure it was the Redskins' last game. Well, this was before the playoffs anyway, so regular season game. And if you notice, Redskins lost, falling to 300, or they fell to 3-13. And whenever you type out Wounded Knee Massacre, that equates to 313. So that to me was like, what? Like that was like dead on. But then whenever you total up the points and you take 16 plus 47, like we were just talking about, the number 63, a total of 63 points, just like how Native American 63, Indigenous 63, just an important number that I've paid attention to. So this is one of the examples that, just help me understand how they really do pay tribute to history in the world of sports. And I mean, there is some other interesting things, and that was the season going into 2020, whenever it was about, the Chiefs ended up winning, and, talking about the Wounded Knee Massacre, like, what was it? That same season, supposedly Patrick Mahomes dislocated his knee, and then just like the year before, Jimmy Garoppolo had a knee, I don't remember if it was an ACL torn or something, but like both these guys had knee issues and ended up, competing in the Super Bowl with each other. Let me close some tabs. And Pocahontas too. I mean, she's an interesting topic, talking about her being part of the Powhatan people. But I mean, even when you look into her death, they don't tell you how she dies. I mean, she's in England, right, at the time of her death, and they don't even tell you unknown causes. And she died at around the age of 21, really young. I mean, if you read it just on Wikipedia here, speculated causes of her death include pneumonia, smallpox, tuberculosis, hemorrhage, or I don't even know how you say that, or it could have been poisoning. So, I mean, what a vast, range of things it could have been. And let's see. Yeah. But yeah, I just found it interesting that Pope Gregory the 15th, was this pope at the time of this massacre, and supposedly at the same time of, even Squanto being alive, because this massacre happened 6 months before Squanto died. And yeah, it's just interesting that whenever you kind of look at the timeline of things, and it was 1621, whenever they like to say was when the first Thanksgiving was, in 1621. So just the year before, or really it would have been 6 months before the Jamestown Massacre. And 201 I wanted to share with you guys too, is just because how we often refer to colony, or the colonies at the time, and we didn't really just say towns, but whenever you just write out Jamestown Colony carries that 201. But just to share that. Let's see. But yeah, that's pretty much what was on my mind. I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit. I mean, there's so many other topics I need to. I just run this topic and start rambling about other things. Right now, I'm reading a book. I'm almost done with it. It's really interesting. What's it called? It's called Jesuit Missions. Like that's the first part of it, but then it talks about the Native Americans of North America. And so I'm learning a lot about like the early 1600s, because it's kind of amazing when you think about how the Jesuits were out and about trying to go to other countries and learn about, not only like learn and take advantage of these people, but they really were like jotting a lot of stuff down about these people. Like right now I've been learning about the Algonquins of what is now Canada, and they've been a big tribe we've been talking about throughout most of the book. And what other tribe was it? There's so many tribes I can't keep them straight. Hold on, let me just go grab this real quick. Okay, so the book is actually called The Jesuit Relations, Natives and Missionaries in 17th Century North America. So, I mean, a lot of it still is, though, in the like this one says 1636, 1634. I mean, it basically is just talking about it. There's different journalists in here, different Jesuits, talking about the Hurons, the Iroquois, Algonquins, and the Jesuits that are like writing in here are Polygion, if I'm saying their names right, Jean de Brebeuf, I don't know how to say it. There's just several, there's a handful of them, and but I mean it all kind of, but they all do talk about I don't even know how to start talking about this book, because I mean this is before there's anything like how we have society today. Like this is back before there were laws and rules and thoughts about how people do things, right? Like this is like just observing how the people lived and how they survived and how, like, what their rituals were, what their beliefs were spiritually, everything, like how they used the land, how they used the animal, like literally all the pieces of the animal for everything, right? Like we know this type of thing, but it's from the Jesuits' views, which some of it can kind of be annoying because they often write about how barbaric these people are, and how that they hope that they find Christ and stuff, and how that they can eventually convert them, because that's like their end game. It seems like obviously they want to convert these Native American, these indigenous people. But I don't know, it's been really interesting just reading from like how the Hurons, especially, how they kind of like buried or got rid of their dead finally. I mean, I'll share just a little bit without going too far, but I'm trying to find that chapter real quick. They call it the Feast of the Dead, which obviously is translated after the Jesuits are writing about it, so I don't know what the actual name of it was. But so for an example, what was really interesting was okay, so they have their own village and such, but this is the part that I was kind of bummed, because they didn't say how often this takes place. Like I don't know if it's annually, every couple years, or how often it occurs. But what it is whenever the people of the Huron people die, and say that they were even left like in the forest away from the village, or wherever they died is kind of like where they died, right? I mean, I don't think it was a bad thing to bring them back to their village. I think some of them did, but there would be a time of whenever that they would host this. I don't know if it was yearly or what, but they would have a time where they would round up all of the dead bodies. And you got to think that this wasn't like, I mean, it's weird to think about now, like, because of the way we handle the dead. But back then, this is kind of, it was like a way to show like all of the people of like the young children. Like in here, in the book, it states basically like, we're all going to die. We all know we're going to die. This is just the process, right? Like we're all going to be this dead body one day. So without like, in the Jesuits would write about it, like nobody looked like they were disgusted or in fear or like frightened by the dead bodies. Like this was just their natural way. So they would collect all the bodies, and no matter where they were, even if they had to go find their bodies a couple of miles, 10 miles away from their village, they would go get them because they would know where they were. And so there's like an illustration in this book of them carrying them like dead bodies on their backs. And so then they would have like this huge like crater pit with fire, obviously. Because the thing is, what I read, I don't want to misquote it, but the people believe that there were two souls. The first soul leaves your body when you die, but then your remaining soul, they believed, remains in your bones. And so to fully get rid of those souls, you know, it was basically like a cremation, throwing or laying their bodies in the pits and having a big burn. But I mean, what was interesting about it too is like, you know, because it should, I mean, just like how people today, I guess we have the funeral homes and they're in their caskets, but we have the people like putting the makeup on them, making them look nice and stuff. That's similar to what these Huron people did. They would, you know, they would braid their hair, they would clean them up, even if like their skin was falling off their bones and they were, you know, if they were deteriorating already, it's described that they would remove all of that and just clean up their bones really nicely. And you know, I mean, it's just interesting to think about. I mean, this whole chapter just had me like, I'm just going to stop reading this chapter because it's just, it would just be looked at, you know, oddly today if we were to, think about the Huron people today, like if they chose that they wanted to do this, I'm sure that they would, I don't even know if it's illegal or if they could do this today, you know? I mean, that's how civilized and wiped out so much, you know, just so much how much everything has changed. But so yeah, that was one of the chapters that I feel like really stuck with me because it's kind of detailed with like, you know, even like the little kids. And then so then it also a lot of, because it wasn't only the Huron people, it does describe that they would go to other villages nearby. And man, what is that? Sorry if you can hear that background noise. I think yeah, hopefully that's not loud. But what was I going to say? Oh, and then also what the people would do is they would make beaded jewelry or, you know, nice jewelry and whatever they could to put on these bodies too, as they would put their bones and stuff in the burning pits. But I mean, there's been a lot of interesting things in here that I would not have known about. So I mean, I guess that's like one good thing about like the Jesuits writing this all down. But I mean, in the long run, you know, we all knew what they were there for, and they clearly talk about it all being based in like them wanting to convert the Indians and such. And then there's, yeah, I don't know. I still got quite a bit to read, but it's certain things that they talk about. I'll just read you out the chapters. Well, definitely hunting. Just I don't even know if I say it right, but this one's about the Montanagis, that tribe. Like just hunting. It talks about disease and medicines, how they took care of themselves. Yeah, it does talk about a lot of stuff spiritually, what they believed in. But yeah, that's just what I've been keeping busy with. And between like a few books off, I did get Russell Mean's book. I don't know if you guys watched any of those Russell Mean videos I put up, but he's definitely a big advocate for the Native Americans back in the day when he was still alive. And it's so, I mean, what I really liked about the InfoWars one that I put up with him talking on that one, because he talked about the topics that are so relevant today, especially when it comes to vaccines and health and dieting. And just, I mean, if he were alive today, because what he died in, I don't remember what year he died, 2017. Russell Means, or no, he died in 2012. So he was already talking about these, like, yeah. If you didn't watch that video, I mean, it's basically everything that we know, but for him to speak out and be talking about that, I mean, it's important to me because it's just, it's sad how so many Navajos on the reservation are, and because I'm in Northwest New Mexico, and, you know, the largest tribe in the nation is the Navajo people when it comes to talking about full-blooded, like how many full-blooded natives that exist in, you know, in it being like the largest tribe, but definitely the largest tribe, but probably the poorest tribe. It's terrible how they're put together. But I mean, but what was really bad about it during the pandemic was just the fact that, like, even the Navajo Nation president, I just put on his name, I haven't talked about him in a while, Jonathan Nez, N-E-Z, pushing it all over the place, making the whole reservation was mandated, signs on like every gas station, every laundromat, every grocery store, everywhere, like everywhere, that it's like a necessity for the people to go, because a lot of people on the reservation don't have their own running water. They have to go to laundromats. And so, but I mean, just screaming at you to have a mask on. And I didn't realize it was so bad until I went over there to, I have a friend who lives on the reservation, and I did some work for her. We like re-skirted her trailer, and I just ordered a pizza because there's like nothing in that town. So I ordered a pizza from Domino's, and the Domino's is connected, and it's inside of the gas station. And I walked inside the gas station without a mask because I don't have any mask in my truck or anything. And you just immediately, so you walk into the store, you're in the gas station, but if you go to the left diagonal, there's Domino's. And I had already ordered it. All I had to do was pick it up and pay. And like the guy was just harping at me as soon as I opened the door that you need a mask, man. And I was on the phone too, and I was annoyed. I was like, I don't have one. And but he still wouldn't, just like, it was annoying, but I never put a mask on or anything. And then I went over to the Domino's side of it, and the lady over there, I mean, she was probably like both these kids were like, both these people, like he was probably younger than me. She looked more my age, but she didn't even like really make eye contact with me. Like she looked like she was annoyed, but then she mumbled, "Put a mask on, please." But my pizza was sitting on the counter. I had just threw a 20 on the counter, just waiting for my change and stuff. Because at that point, I was almost too pissed to tip, right? And normally I always tip, but I was getting already aggravated because then she's like, she slides me a disposable mask, and I just looked at her. I'm like, I'm not going to put that on for like 10 seconds. And I don't know, you know what I mean? It's just, a lot of brainwashing on the reservation, it feels like. It's just amazing how many people are, especially the Navajo people. But I mean, and that was just lifted recently after, I don't even remember what date it was now, but after Biden said the pandemic was over a few months ago, that's when, like, ever since the pandemic started in 2020 to whenever it was declared that the pandemic was over recently, that's how long these mandates have been going on on the reservation. And that's like a lot of New Mexico, Arizona, and parts of Utah. That's how big the Navajo Nation is. So that's how long, like, everyone, I don't know, it's annoying. I bet you, I wouldn't even doubt like a high 90%, like at least mid 90s, 95% of the Navajo population are fully vaccinated. Guarantee it. That's how strict it was. But I can show you what I'm talking about. Jonathan Nez is the current president, has been for the past few years, but he actually just got voted out. So the ninth and current president of the Navajo Nation. This is the guy, obviously Democratic, but I mean, even got so many Republicans. I can vouch for even some family members got fully vaccinated, and they're on the other side of the politics. But what's the new guy? We got a new guy. Yeah, there it is. Bo Nygreen is going to be the new Navajo Nation president. You can see him here with his mask on. But I don't know when that begins. So, yeah, because there's usually a Navajo Nation fair that takes place, and it's a big deal. Like thousands and thousands of natives, mostly Navajos, come to it in Shiprock, New Mexico. And they hadn't had it for the past couple of years, and they finally had it this year again. But I mean, that was a big deal because that's like a moneymaker for a lot of people on the reservation. So it was really a bummer that they didn't host it the past couple of years, because I'm sure it only hurt the people even more, because I mean, a lot of people are silversmiths and, like jewelry, sterling silver, turquoise, all sorts of stuff that, crafts and pottery, you name it, art, a lot of artists in different ways. That's how they make their money and how they make their living. So I'm glad that they had it this year at least. Let me check in. Hey, Angel. Rick James. Yeah, it's definitely different. But yeah, that's mostly what was on my mind. Trying to think of what other topics to talk about. But I mean, I do have a couple stories I really want to share with you. I know one of them is definitely, I guess, what we would say like on the organic side, but it's totally off topic of what I'm on right now. So, but I have no plans this evening, so hopefully I can jump on here because I have a dental appointment here in like an hour and a half I need to get ready for, and then I do plan to go to work after that, and then we'll see what I'm doing tonight, but I don't have any plans, so I should be home, because there is a story I want to talk about, because the organic side of the numbers, I mean, I can't explain it, but I mean, there's got to obviously be that side of it. Like I do think that makes sense, because I mean, why else would this word gematria, however you say it, even exist without it ever have being observed in the past by, you know, the whoever. I mean, you had Aleister Crowley, you had, obviously, it seems like the Jesuits, the people, the elites who had knowledge of this, these mysticisms, these Jewish mysticisms. I mean, I do think that there has to be a strong organic and a thing to the numbers leading to certain things. But with what we see today in the news and everything, yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like it's being forced and contrived and put that way. But maybe it's hard. It's a weird topic, but I feel like it's a topic that I like to talk about, and it's hard to with friends that don't completely understand or are in this community, you know. Um, yeah, definitely. There's a duality to everything. I agree with that. So I definitely want to share a story about that later with my organic story. And I know Zach's been probably waiting on me to share it with everyone. It's just kind of, it has to do with a death, and I just don't feel like there's ever a good time to talk about it. So, yeah, but, and then there is another story, because I do want to talk about, even though I'm kind of sick of talking about the news of Brittany Griner and all her being detained and stuff, and who knows where she's really at. She's probably kicked up in a hotel or probably in her own house where she lives in Russia, because she's lived in Russia for probably like over a decade now, you know, in the off season. But I mean, there's a story that, you know, I can relate with, and I want to call it like an organic story. It has nothing to do with the numbers, but a similar thing happened to me recently. But yeah, I'll just have to plan to do a live stream here soon. Let's see. I guess we can just check what's going on in the news today real quick. Today's 12/2, Aaron's birthday. The day leaving 29 days left in the year. Today, football equals 29. So, UFC, I don't ever really pay attention to UFC. The news, well, WNBA was announced a couple days ago that they're going to start up on May 19th. So I'll be ready for that, because I feel like that's where I'm at with sports. Like last year, I feel like we did really well. We did have the Sun in it all the way to the championship. Like that was my team. I thought Connecticut was going to win it all, but they lost to the Aces in the championship. But I mean, that makes sense, because I mean, the Aces, I'm going to go off topic already, but Aces, you know, Aces have the 26 in their name, which we've known since the start. The 26 teams are the Aces and the Chicago Sky, because Sky also equals 26. Last year was the 26th season of the WNBA. So, I mean, those were two teams that we were well aware of. It's just, God, last year was just so scripted for the Aces. They won literally everything. They won the WNBA Commissioner's Cup championship. Their star player, Asia Wilson, and Kelsey Plum, they won the All-Star game, and then they let them win the championship. Like, that was annoying. But we'll see how this goes. I'm excited for that to start back up. So this will be the 27th season of the WNBA's existence, which goes fitting with this year being the 103rd NFL season. 103 is the 27th time number. So I'm looking for that. But yeah, I think I'm going to price. Yeah, definitely was synced with the Vegas shooting because recall Las Vegas shooting took place on October 1st. That one was 2017, I believe. And, like the date 101, 101's a 26 prime, 26 WBA season. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, the 91 massacre on the day leaving 91 days left in the year. Yeah, I got to get out of here too. I need to go wash up and go to my dentist. So, a new dental office though, so we'll check it out. But my other half is my dental assistant, so that's always cool. But yeah, it's already been about an hour, I guess. OJ got out of jail that day. Huh. Interesting. All right, you guys have a good day. I'll try to be back maybe tonight or this weekend, something. Yeah, because I got to talk about some things. All right, we'll see ya.